everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm back with a brand new speed build, this time doing a little sweet micro cottage, but also something else that I wanted to do was have a little bit of a more serious discussion and a little bit of a talk about something that's quite close to my heart. So first off, I'm just going to give you the details about the build so you know what I'm doing. And this is a 1-bed, 1-bathroom build. It is a little micro home and it's based on this 20 by 20 lot in Windenburg and comes in at just less than 39,000 simoleons. So it wasn't cheap. Obviously, I didn't use any restricted packs or a restricted budget at all. Hence obviously the price, but if you were to download this from the gallery unfurnished, obviously it would be a lot cheaper, but for the purposes of dressing this build it came in at around about 39,000 simoleons, so it was a lot more expensive. So this is going to be a vocal warning, a trigger warning for anybody who feels uncomfortable or not in a place to hear about anxiety, depression, suicide, mental health disorders, especially more for the younger audiences as well. You may want to skip this one or you may want to mute it, and that's absolutely fine. But today I wanted to discuss something that was quite close to my heart, really. Something that has really come to light over the weekend here in the UK. So for those of you around the world that don't know, in the UK we have a television programme called Love Island, and the presenter of that show is a lady called Caroline Flack, who sadly over the weekend passed away due to suicide. Unfortunately, it was something that took a lot of people by surprise. It was a very shock and sudden death, and you know, it's raised a lot of questions with a lot of people about how social media and the media in general, you know, can really play, you know, the part that they can play in a person's life and how they can affect their mental health. So I felt today that I wanted to share something that's very, very personal to myself. So I've decided to share something that's quite personal to me, and it's actually something that I've shared on my personal Facebook page just this weekend in light of Caroline's death, and I just feel like it's something that I'm ready to share now, and something that if I discuss my personal experience, then maybe somewhere it may help somebody, and if it does help somebody then I'm all for it, because ultimately there's nothing to be ashamed of by sharing my story. It was just something that was very, very painful for me at the time. So 17 years ago, when I was 17 years old, in March 2003, I attempted to commit suicide after a domestic violence incident which involved somebody that was 10 years older than me. On the day that I tried to take my own life, I tried to split up with this person from the safety of a friend's house. I was frightened of this person, and I didn't want to be with him any longer. So I got myself in a safe place and decided to make the phone call to him that I wanted to break it off. Now, this person had a lot of anger issues. He had a lot of issues in general, and I never realised at the time just how much my own mental health had deteriorated. I was so blindsided by trying to support him through his own issues that I didn't realise just how much my own mental health was suffering. And in the post that I posted on Facebook, I mentioned how my ex actually took a hammer to every single item that I owned and smashed everything up that I ever owned. To the point where there was even plaster hanging out of the walls. It was a very violent incident, and the police were called and the police were involved. Now, from the safety of a friend's house, a police officer came out to take a statement from me, and partway through that statement he received a call, an emergency call, and he had to leave, but he promised to come back the next day and take the rest of the statement. Now, unfortunately, very, very quickly, I didn't see it coming. It wasn't premeditated and it wasn't planned. I was just a very vulnerable person who was in a state of despair, and I'd lost absolutely everything that I owned, and I just felt lost. And I didn't have a support network around me. I have a very fractured relationship with my own mother. My dad actually brought me up. So at the time, I wasn't really supported, and I made a very rash decision, but what at the time felt like a very clear decision to end it all. Fortunately, I was found by friends and I was taken to hospital where I spent 3 days, and I ended up discharging myself. When I woke up, I was just really angry that I'd survived, that I was still alive, and I just didn't want to be there anymore. And I discharged myself, and I remember walking out of the hospital just feeling like I was in a haze. It felt like I'd just been away for a few days. It just didn't sort of register with me the gravity of what I'd just done. So my parents didn't actually find out for a month after it happened, and I remember my parents just not believing me when I told them. I just knew that I needed help. I knew that I needed to go back home and I needed to heal. Now, I ended up picking myself up. I got myself to a better place, and I would say it's taken a long time to recover from that. It did take me a good couple of years to really reflect back. And I remember actually sitting around the dinner table with my dad a couple of years later, retelling the story about what happened. And it was one of the first times I'd ever told, step by step what happened that day. And I just remember bursting into tears. And I remember thinking at that moment, that's when it really hit me, just what I'd done. Now, I think the most frightening thing looking back on what I did was that it was just so sudden. The decision I was very clear. I knew what I was doing. I said goodbye to my friends. I even had my friend's mum offer to come back to my place to help collect some stuff, and I was just very insistent that I was absolutely fine, I was okay. It took me about 15 minutes. I remember riding back on my bike from my friend's house, and I was very clear about what I did that day. And as a result, throughout the rest of my life today, over this last 17 years, I've always been very, very careful with my mental health. I do suffer from anxiety and depression, as a lot of people do. I have OCD. My mum suffers she's a very poorly woman, really, with her own mental health, and a lot of it is hereditary. And so I'm very in tune with myself, I would say, and I know I tend to kind of lock down when I can feel myself just not being in a great place. And I then go into a kind of self-care mode where I get myself into, a better position. But I really wanted to talk about it because it was something I just feel like it's something that in this day and age we need to talk about. Mental health is a real thing. I don't think my dad's going to forgive me for saying this, but my dad is somebody that doesn't understand mental health. He is someone that has never really suffered, I don't think, from depression or anxiety or those kinds of things. And I do get that some people just don't get it, but it really isn't a case of just get up, get dressed, put a smile on your face and just forget about it. Like, this is a real thing that affects people all over the world, and it does not discriminate. I literally just watched Justin Bieber's Seasons series over on YouTube Originals, and you only have to watch that to see that you can be the most richest, most talented person in the world, but depression and anxiety don't discriminate. And it's important that we start to address it in society, and we start to take care of ourselves and to recognize these symptoms and know that yes, it's okay to not be okay, but at the same time, it's important to seek help when you need it. And that help may be in the form of a friend, a family member, or you may not want to tell absolutely anybody you know, and you may seek more comfort in speaking to a complete stranger. And that could be, via Samaritans or some kind of help organisation for mental health who are sort of qualified in talking to people who aren't in a great place. What I do want you to understand though is that if I'd have died 17 years ago and I hadn't have survived, I'd have never gone on to have my 4 children. I wouldn't have gone on to get married, to achieve what I've achieved on YouTube and absolutely everything to date. And I wouldn't be here planning a future and continuing to dream. You know, I've achieved so much and I'm such a different person than I was 17 years ago when I look back at just how vulnerable I was as a young girl. And I just want you to know that if you are in a place like that, that you aren't alone, that there's many other people that are going through what you're going through, and there is help out there. And I think the more that we talk about it, because years ago, it wasn't socially acceptable to talk about your feelings in this way, or if you went through something like this, it was considered a private matter. But we need to talk about it. You need to know that if you're in a place like that, that you're not alone, that you're not abnormal, that there are other people out there struggling too, but that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that you can go on to achieve great things if you seek the help that you need. I think the thing that got me with Caroline Flack the most was the fact that her life changed so drastically within a short space of time. And one of the main issues is that the media and social media tore her down so quickly. She went from being just the most lovable, fantastic, bubbly person to was just reduced to nothing. And I think it's important to take from that it costs absolutely nothing in life to be kind. Kindness is free, and you should treat people how you want to be treated as well. And I think that's the frightening thing about social media in general these days, is that you can literally sit behind a screen and say whatever you like to somebody else without realizing the repercussions of the things that you're saying. And the same goes from another perspective, that being kind can go a long way. You don't know what a smile, a comment, or a conversation, how much of an impact that can have on somebody's day. And it might just be just that moment in time that made them feel completely different. Now, I know I don't ordinarily talk this deep and this honest, and I'm not looking for anything back from this other than just think. Just listen and just think, and always be kind, and always be tuned into your own emotions as well, and just take care of yourself. You've got to learn to take care of yourself. You're number one. But I'm actually going to leave some links in the description box below that can help people worldwide, whether that's contact numbers or websites. Please be sure to check them out if it's something that you feel you need to look at. But thank you so much for sitting through and listening to this story, and take care and be kind to one another. Bye.